and gentlemen, my name is Rafaela Erier. I'm the Manager Data and Statistics at AFRAA. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the topic Aviation, Gender Equality, and the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Next slide, please. The presentation has 3 parts. The first part will The presentation has 3 parts. The first part will give you some information about the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The second part will be a snapshot of gender equality today. And the third part will be a look at our aviation industry. So let's go to our first point. The 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development. On the 25th of September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly unanimously adopted Resolution 71, the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This agenda is an action plan for people, planet, and prosperity. The UN Assembly recognized that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. This historic document contains the 70 Sustainable Development Goals as follows: end poverty in all its forms, end hunger, achieve food security, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, achieve gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy, promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth, build resilient infrastructures, reduce inequality within and among countries, make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, ensure sustainable consumption, take urgent actions to combat climate change and its impacts, conserve and sustainably use the oceans and marine resources, protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of ecosystems, promote peace, justice, and inclusive institutions at all levels, strengthen and revitalize the global partnership for implementation of these goals. Now let's have a look of the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is gender equality. The official wording of the 5th Sustainable Development Goal is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. This SDG has 9 targets. The first one is ending all forms of discriminations against women and girls. The second, ending violence and exploitation of women and girls. Eliminating harmful practices such as forced marriage and female genital mutilations. Increasing value of unpaid care and promoting shared domestic responsibilities, ensuring full participation of women in leadership and decision-making, ensuring access to universal reproductive rights and health, fostering equal rights to economic resources, property ownership, and financial service for women, promoting empowerment of women through technology, and adopting, strengthening policies and enforcing legislations for gender equality. Even if some progress were made toward the achievement of these targets, we are still far from the goal and there's still a lot to do. Now, let's have a look at the gender gap as for now. Next slide, please. According to the Women Gender Gap Snapshot 2021, The total number of women and girls living on less than 1.9 USD per day is forecasting to peak at 435 million in 2021. That number is not expected to revert to the pre-pandemic level until 2030. The two main regions that will be most affected are Sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. In Sub-Saharan Africa, between 2021 and 2030, the number of women and girls living in extreme poor households is expected to increase from 249 million to 283 million. Even before the pandemic, globally, an estimated 245 million women and girls aged 15 years and older were subjected to sexual or physical violence. With the COVID pandemic, calls to domestic violence helplines increased. Over 200 million women and girls in 31 countries have undergone female genital mutilations. And in most of the cases, they were caught before the age of 5. 11 million girls from the pre-primary school to tertiary education age are at risk of not returning to school after the COVID pandemic. The World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report shows that the annual average income is estimated at 13.1 thousand international dollars for women versus 23.3 thousand for men. This shows the gap and the inequality between women and men in terms of income. Next slide, please. In terms of emerging jobs, women are represented at 20% or less in cloud computing and engineering roles. For marketing, sales, product development, data and artificial intelligence roles, women represent between 30 and 45% of the roles. Next slide, please. The share of women being hired in almost all sectors declined in April 2020 with the COVID crisis. The most pronounced decrease was in the recreation and travel sector, the consumer goods, and the consumer retail. The non-for-profit industry was also affected. Next, please. The COVID pandemic interrupted the already slow progress toward gender parity in senior management positions. Out of 11, only 4 sectors maintained the progress toward closing the gender gap in senior management: innovation technology, financial services, health, and manufacturing. The other sectors saw a decline in the percentage of women hired into senior management roles. Next slide, please. The World Economic Forum reports that women represent only 26.1% of parliament seats and only 22.6% of ministers worldwide. In 81 countries, there has never been a woman head of state as of 15th of January 2021. At the current rate of progress, the World Economic Forum estimates that it will take 145 years to attain gender parity in politics. Now, let's have a look at the African context. Next slide, please. Africa has seen some significant improvements in terms of gender equality, but there's still a long way to go. There are some marked differences in gender gaps at regional levels. As we can see in the map, the gap in the Sahel region remains the most challenging. Countries like South Africa and Namibia are the most advanced in terms of gender equality. The gap for basic education is now low, with nearly equal number of girls and boys completing basic education. At the same time, far fewer girls and boys study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and fewer girls than boys are literate. Regarding employment, young women are more likely than young men to be in informal and vulnerable employment. Women generally have less access to credits than men do. Senior decision-making in firms remains substantially in the hands of men rather than women, and most Africa's manager, professionals, and technicians are men. Men also are the main representative in parliaments, with only few exceptions. Now let's have a look at our aviation industry. Next, please. The data on gender repartition for the air transport industry are almost non-existent. Following its Global Aviation Gender Summit in Cape Town in 2018, ICAO underscored the urgency of global collection, analysis, and sharing of gender data in the industry. Unfortunately, 3 years later, very little progress has been made. However, the limited data available show that women are underrepresented in the aviation industry. Next, please. According to a recent data collection by the University of Nebraska, women in aviation in the United States are underrepresented in technical and leadership roles and overrepresented in low-income, low-profile positions. As an example, women represent only 1.5% of airlines captains and 5.1% of all pilots. Only 2.4% of mechanics, compared to 97.6% for men. 16% of airport managers and air traffic controllers are women. And finally, 3% of CEOs, and all other key leadership positions are devoted to women. On the other hand, women represent 79% of flight attendants and 86% of travel agents. According to the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Charter, women represent only 5% of the commercial pilots in UK. The same percentage was estimated in France. These figures show that to what extent women are underrepresented in our industry, especially in technical and decision-making positions. So to conclude, next please, Maureen. As in many other sectors, the percentage of women in key positions in aviation is low. However, the number of women professionals in aviation is slowly increasing. Currently in US, 13% of the pilot students are women. This is a pledge of the increase in the proportion of women in the industry. As the demand in workforce is currently increasing, women should seize the opportunity to take up more roles and strengthen their position in the industry. Finally, we call all the industry stakeholders to encourage and promote women access to employment in the industry, particularly in leadership roles. Thank you very much, and over to you, Maureen.
Thank you very much, Rafaela, for making your presentation and sharing with us some data on the aviation situation on gender equity and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And looking at the attendee hub on our event platform, we do not have any questions or comments from the chat side. So we will conclude this session. Thank you very much, participants, for following the presentation by AFRAA Data and Statistics Manager. The presentation will be available to all participants after the event, and the session will be streamable even after the event. Thank you very much, and let's meet at the next session, which is a presentation by ICAO on ICAO's priorities and accomplishments in attaining gender diversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen.